Hello there, Year 7. We are going to continue our geography studies. Welcome back to my channel. North America, and this time it's not about seas and oceans and mountains or landscape features or climate, but we are going to continue with the people of North America. And as you can see the title here, Europeans had a great influence here on this continent, and European nations settled really in North America, but of course there were plenty of natives there as well. So if we concentrate on the continent itself, please have a look at this relief map just really quickly. Really obvious where Europeans could arrive first here, because this area was the closest to Europe. It was obvious that they could anchor their ships in this region when they came over, and near the coastline they could settle easily. Further away, where it was too dry, it's never a good option for people. So this region is really kind of uninhibited. Or in the north, where it's too cold, again, it's really harsh to live there, harsh conditions there, so they didn't want to settle there. Or in the too high mountain ranges, obviously it wasn't good. So along the coastlines everywhere, on big plains where the climate was good, or there was kind of transport route because of the rivers and the lakes, that was the best for the people. Okay, so that's just a kind of quick recap on the physical features, because they are connected. How the people could settle there are deeply connected here, like this. So I would like you to emphasize some more things. North America became popular with Europeans because in Europe, Industrial Revolution was started in the 17th, 18th centuries. Really many factories were built, mass production arrived, conveyor belts, people could stand there, they could work, they could earn money, they could buy food and clothes for the first time in the history of humans or mankind. It was easy to get food and clothing. So, you know what? People could have big families. But after that, there was a kind of strange feedback or a strange kind of effect on all this. To tell you the truth, finally, there was no work. They were out of work. There were too many people all of a sudden in Western Europe first, and then in Central and Eastern Europe as well. So they needed to find jobs. And the new country, the new world, the United States of America, was a perfect, ideal option for them. So they just went over to the new world by ships, and it was a kind of harsh thing. Imagine that in the 19th century, it took weeks, if not months, to get there. People got sick. So it wasn't that simple, but still many people had to do it. So this way, the first, even Hungarian people went there. Kati Vargas and other names just appeared there in New York and other big cities. They tried to go to the west, but then the conditions were not that good there, because by that time Hungarians arrived. You know, many parts in the eastern part of the United States were kind of other nations. So it was really challenging to live there at that time. But for many, it was the American dream. They believed in themselves. America is the land of the free, land of different opportunities, so they could make good money and then they could get by. And of course, because there were different natives living in the region, it also meant that there were some battles or conflicts between these different nations. I would like to show you some of the images. These are Mayas here. Mayas are the people of the New World, basically. Most of them are in the southern parts, but still you can find some, even these days, in the northern section as well. And Aztecs. That's the other kind of, you can see a kind of nice folk wear and a special headdress on the lady's head. So Mayas and Aztecs were the native people. In the north, in the colder region, Inuit. Even the name Canada is an Inuit word. It means village. There were just a lot of villages there, not big cities, because it's too cold everywhere. So Mayas, Aztecs, Inuits. Now we mentioned the natives. People called them Indians. You know the story, Christopher Columbus, that he was in India, and these Native Americans were called like that. And these days, unfortunately, many of them can just live in reservations because all their lands were taken and finally they were chased away. So this is the story of it in a nutshell. Here you can find a map, and you don't need to write this down. I will tell you when to write certain things down in your exercise book. Just I wanted to show you how many different types of native languages are there in North America, and you can see that the map is really colorful. You can see the Eskimos here, or some of the names are very special, Muskogean or Iroquoian. So Iroquois Indians are typical, or Mayan, we mentioned the Mayas, okay? Or if you look at the other map, is the Native American cultural area. So these are the so-called lands of the Indians. And you can see the different names of these people there, like Dakotas, for instance, or Chippewa, or what else, which can be well known in Hungary. Let's see, Apaches, I think, are well known in Hungary as well, or Cherokee Indians, okay? So you don't need to write this down, just I wanted you to see which areas were occupied by the different tribes of Native Americans. And the European movement started a couple of 100 years ago, and not just the English, but Dutch, Swedish, Spanish ships appeared, of course, and the French as well. So, and they just arrived here in the northeast, as I told you that. So this map is good for remembering that thing. What European countries do you see in North America? So you can see them there. Don't forget now, please. The names are appearing here. In the northwest, I would like to emphasize that the Russians were there, and finally the USA even bought Alaska from Russia. There was a conflict between the English and the French there in this region. And no small wonder in Canada they still speak French in Quebec. You learned about this probably in Culture and Civilization, I hope, or you will later on. Okay, why do you think they are not further south? Lots of conflicts in the region between the different nations, so no small wonder that it wasn't that simple to go there. Plus living conditions were fine, and this area was closer to Europe as well. And this is an image which is really well known. When the first people from Europe arrived, there were just men here. First they didn't take any ladies. Later on some ladies were kind of recruited and they came over. And many of them just simply died because they prayed to God, they did nothing. The winter was cold and harsh. Some Indians helped them later though. This is how they survived the first couple of years. And this is why the fourth Thursday in November is always Thanksgiving Day. Yeah, they just say thank you, and they are really grateful that they could survive a couple of 100 years ago. Without the help of the natives, they couldn't have been able to survive the harsh conditions. Okay, another map of the little villages and towns, settlements, we can just call them like that. Settlement is like Colonia, Telep. So they were just there alongside the seashore. New Haven, Plymouth, the Plymouth plantation is really famous, or settlement. Jamestown is another one, which is in history books. And the French also arrived. I mentioned Quebec and Montreal, and these are parts of Canada. Now, Canada, the word means village. It's an Inuit Eskimo word. Controls St. Lawrence River and access to interior of North America. St. Lawrence River was mentioned last time. The Great Lakes are here. It's an important waterway, so no small wonder that it was a really strategic thing to own it. And they developed fur trade, so that was an important treasure at that time. So fur, animal fur. And by 1682 also controlled Mississippi River. Okay, some explorers like Cartier, the French guy. I'm just going to highlight some of the names which could be well known. You can see the images here. Of course, you can stop the video footage, you can read these, but this is really like extra material, so I don't want to go into details now. And the Dutch came here and they found Albany, New York, on Hudson River. So this is an important part. Okay, I'm just going to highlight this here. And Henry Hudson, Hudson Bay is named after this gentleman here. English sailing for the Dutch, searching for Northwest Passage, and he claimed Hudson River settlers established New Netherlands, New York later on. Okay, and then Jamestown was established in 1607, and look at this, that's quite shocking. The death rate was 70%, no food, too cold because they arrived there in autumn and winter just started. New York and winters, and the winters in that region can be really cold because the northern currents just come down and they bring down all the cold air masses from the north. So it's not that simple. In New York, it can be easily be under minus 10 degrees in winter, and lots of snow can fall. And gold was, of course, really important. This was the first permanent settlement, so this is why I wanted you to see this Jamestown. We spoke about the Hudson Bay area, now I don't want to speak about that. Okay, next one is Sir Walter Raleigh, who is also famous. The British learned quite a lot about this gentleman here, but now we are not going into details. And I just wanted you to see this map. Look how complex it is. Lots of trade routes and lots of people came there and back. And you can just analyze the map a bit. Some of the names will be well known for you as well. But you can see that this was the busiest area in the east. But they wanted to go to the west as well and to explore that region. And these were the claims by Europeans. So many countries were here and they all wanted to have their own share of the continent. So this caused plenty of conflicts. Wars started. And some of the wars are highlighted here. I'm not going to go into details about these. You can stop the video footage, you can read these. You learned or you will learn about these in history classes. But history and geography are kind of connected. And by 1770 it was a really complex thing. Lots of different nations were here and the people started arriving, and this is what we have now in the 21st century. Canada has a population of around 30 million people, 300 million, over 300 million now. In the United States of America, Mexico, 130 million people. You can see the big difference between the two countries. Really cold conditions and great variety of different climates, so it's much better for settlements and towns and cities. So no small wonder that many people arrived here and finally they started their life there in the United States of America. So the US of A has a kind of bigger population due to mostly climatic reasons. Nowadays, of course, it's much more because economy, industries, these are all important. They were in the 19th century as well. So let's see the demography of the continent North America in a nutshell. North America is the fourth most populated continent and covers about 5.5% of the world's population. I would like you to open your exercise book now and write down all this. North America demography and the highlighted parts here. You can even draw a simplified map of North America with the population, the numbers simply just written there. Second part, Eastern United States, Mexico, Central America and the Caribbean are the most densely populated areas. So this region, Caribbean. Canada, Alaska and Greenland are the least populated areas, too cold. Yeah. The United States and Canada are the most economically developed countries, and the countries of Central America and the Caribbean are less economically developed and poorer. Well, let's see some of the other nations living here. We mentioned Mayas and Aztecs, but you know, people started their own families when they arrived here, and it also meant that there were these mixed marriages, and Spanish and Native American people married, and they are the mestizos. I would like to show you some of the mestizo people here. Mesticek, that's the Hungarian term. So mix of Spanish and Native American people. Yeah. The other kind of typical person, and you can see her special kind of skin tone, which is really special, typical. The mulattoes, mulattok, that's the Hungarian term. They are the mixture of Europeans and mostly African slaves. So that's also a typical kind of person living there in North America there. We mentioned that many nations arrived here in North America. After the English, the Irish, the French, the Spanish, even the German, and then Central European countries, so the Polish, the Czech, and the Hungarians, and finally the Russians all arrived here, and they wanted to start their own businesses, or they just wanted to find a job. They even checked them on Ellis Island, because many people had health problems by the time they arrived. So it meant that lots of doctors were working there. They wanted to check the health conditions of people. Of course, not just industries were attractive, but coastal areas and big lands which were kind of distributed to the people, so they could start their own ranches, they could start their own farms. So this was something really attractive. But nowadays, more than 70–80% of the US of A basically is in big cities. So farming is not the leading industry. Of course, now many people work in service sectors or big factories still, but not in agriculture anymore. And of course, the big megalopolises are so typical in the United States, especially in the eastern zone. Megalopolis means a gigantic, big, huge belt of cities when you can't really see the border of each and every city, and they just form a long band, a long zone of cities right next to each other. So I just wanted to show you the image of New York, but you can see these cities everywhere in films, and probably some of you were even visited some of these places. And the scarcely populated regions were also mentioned, the coast zones and the mountains, because they are also here in your book. In your book on page 51 and 52, you can read all about these. The keywords are also listed here: immigrant, native, settle down, settler, slave, suburb, and takeover. These words were highlighted here. There's a very simple multiple choice test. Let's see, it's not multiple choice, there's just one correct answer, page 49. So please open your workbook there on page 49. You can take a photo of your exercise book and the activity book as well, and please send me the pictures. And page 50, and here you need to work quite a lot on this map, because you need to color the different zones which are required here, and you also need to explain what the word megapolis is. You need to find some definitions here in the book, page 51, okay? Some of the Greek architects also speak about not just megalo or megapolises, but ecumenopolises, when finally all the big cities will form one giant belt around the earth. This whole thing was kind of happening, but now this virus pandemic kind of stopped globalization quite a lot. We will see what's going to happen in the upcoming decades. So please work on these tasks, page 49, 50. Take photos of the finished work and send them over to me. And we are going to check some of the things in our next Zoom session. So until then, keep up good work. Bye-bye.